Greetings troopers, welcome back to the Imperial Academy. This is the second video of our Outside the Empire series, looking at the cultures, civilizations and different species throughout the galaxy. In this video we'll be looking at the ancient warriors of old, the Mandalorians, and their history, culture, ideals and characteristics. But with that, feel free to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy Galactic Empire content or just Star Wars content in general. And maybe feel free to share this video with other like-minded Star Wars fans to show your allegiance to the Empire. But without further ado, let's talk about the Mandalorians. The Mandalorians are a clan of warriors and martial combatants, hailing from the planet of Mandalore, with a creed that is followed by multiple species and factions throughout the galaxy. But before we look into that, let's delve into the history of the Mandalorians. The Mandalorians have a very long-standing history throughout the galaxy. For many thousands of years, the Mandalorians have seen triumph, war and loss on a scale that could rival even the Old Republic. Hailing from the planet Mandalore in the Outer Rim, the Mandalorians, being warriors at heart, quickly established themselves as a competent group of mercenaries, with specialised Mandalorians known as Crusaders being the ones responsible for waging war and conquest of different planets and species within the Outer Rim, and further in to expand Mandalore's territory. Mandalorians utilise very basic tools like swords and shields, the occasional blaster, and their sheer numbers to overpower their enemies, with their continued expansion seeing much success in its early years, gaining territory all the way up to the Inner Rim. Things were looking well for the Crusaders, but eventually things would slow down drastically, as they would come face to face with the Jedi and the Old Republic, kickstarting the Mandalorian War against the Jedi. Initially being taken aback and surprised by the mystical abilities of the Jedi to channel the powers of the Force through them and utilise it in warfare, the Mandalorians for the first time had come across an enemy that posed a major threat and challenge to them. The Crusaders, however, would not accept defeat, and their stubbornness and pride prompted them to make major advancements to their arsenal of weapons, armour and vehicles to be able to take on the powerful Republic which was protected by the Jedi Order. These advancements were combined with a change of their fighting and warfare style to include much more martial combat, as well as a heavy reliance on explosives and distant marksmanship, using jetpacks and high ground to remain clear of the Jedi's force powers. Mandalorians also famously used physical ammunition such as bullets and projectiles during the war to tackle Jedi lightsabers and their ability to deflect blaster bolts, with the bullets instead breaking and exploding upon contact with a lightsaber, creating a spray of shrapnel that could easily injure or cripple a Jedi. Eventually the war between the Mandalorian and the Jedi became big enough that even the Sith got involved. I have a video on that goes more in depth about that, so go and check that out if you're interested. Eventually, towards the end of the Old Republic, the conflict had calmed significantly, with less battles occurring throughout the galaxy between the Crusaders and the Jedi, and more between themselves, with many different Mandalorian factions vying for power, so tensions were still high nonetheless. Everything would change though, when a young Force-sensitive Mandalorian by the name of Tar Vizsla was taken by the Jedi Order, becoming a very proficient and skilled Jedi Knight. But for all his years as a Jedi, his Mandalorian past had never truly left him. Thus he created the infamous Darksaber to stand out among his Jedi peers, also being the tool he would use to rule the planet Mandalore as the Mandalore. And with his death, the Darksaber was taken by the Jedi Order and put into their temple archives, until a group of Mandalorians from House Vizsla would pull a daring heist into the heart of the Jedi Temple and the Republic on Coruscant to steal the Darksaber, and use it to rule Mandalore and unite all of the split Mandalorian factions, changing the course of Mandalorian history and culture forever. Now, to talk about all of Mandalorian history would mean this video would be hours long, so I'm going to oversimplify and summarise these next few periods of Mandalorian history, as I would also like to talk about their culture and characteristics. The final conflict between the Mandalorians and the Jedi left the planet of Mandalore itself a scorched and inhospitable wasteland, forcing the Mandalorians to once again adapt and construct giant dome cities such as Sundari City for example to survive. Mandalore then began to see many years of pacifism and peace under the rule of Duchess Satine and many before her, focusing on the welfare of her planet and her people and moving past the old ways. With the outbreak of the Clone Wars, Pre Vizsla and the Deathwatch tried multiple times to return Mandalore to the old ways. The Deathwatch was eventually converted to a criminal organisation, not that it wasn't one already, by Darth Maul, the Sith Lord eventually killing Duchess Satine and Pre Vizsla, with Maul becoming the rightful ruler of Mandalore and the Darksaber. Much later on into the Empire, Mandalore was seized by the Imperial forces after the Deathwatch was mostly scattered, with Maul being arrested by Jedi Padawan and citizen Ahsoka Tano and the 501st before the Empire's creation, leaving Mandalore to be subjugated like all of the other planets within the galaxy, with the rest being history. If you wish to have a more in-depth look into Mandalore's long and complex history, I recommend looking through many of the great articles and websites out there. I will leave a link for a few of those in the description if that interests you, because wow, the Mandalorians have a lot of history. But with that, let's look into the characteristics and culture of the Mandalorian. The Mandalorians, being experienced warriors and fighters, have a strict code or creed, if you will, that determines what they can and can't do during physical disputes. This code has ingrained itself into Mandalorian culture and traditions since their earliest days fighting the Jedi, and many different enemies throughout the galaxy during their conquest. An example of a code within the Mandalorian Creed would be that if two Mandalorians are vying for the position to rule Mandalore, then they must settle it in a battle to the death, with the victor claiming the Darksaber and taking the Mandalorian throne for themselves. These combat traditions were used throughout many of the major aspects of Mandalorian society, such as justice, political and leadership decisions, battles between powerful opponents, traitors, and determining who gets the largest sum of credits. When it comes to who can be a Mandalorian, anyone can, no matter their species, height, weight, gender. At a young age, these people are inducted into clans. These clans consist of families which serve under the larger Mandalorian house, of which a Mandalorian is a part, making them related through the creed, even if not related by blood or by being born on Mandalore. An example of a Mandalorian house would be the infamous House Vizsla, which consisted of two Mandalorian families or clans, those being Clan Vizsla and Clan Ren. This basic structure of Mandalorian hierarchy has endured for many hundreds of years, with there existing many different Mandalorian houses and clans, all with their own creeds, rules and traditions. Of course, we can't talk about the Mandalorians and not look into the iconic armour, tools and weapons that they use, so let's look at that to finish up. Being made of Beskar and sporting that unique T-shaped visor, the armour of the Mandalorians is among the most unique and most recognisable, besides the Trooper Corps Stormtrooper armour of course. This Beskar allows their armour to be highly protective against blaster bolts and heavy weaponry, and speaking of such, most Mandalorians come equipped with a Z6 jetpack that allows for a great deal of manoeuvrability through the air, especially when dealing with force attacks from Jedi. This jetpack also has the ability to shoot a powerful missile which can destroy any target within a several 100-foot radius upon being shot. Along with this, the Mandalorians utilise magnetised boots, armed wrist gauntlets, and a built-in tactical display showcasing information about exterior and interior suit conditions to the wearer. This gauntlet had offensive capabilities built into it, such as a sonic repulsor, which pushes back all things within the radius of it, much like a Jedi's force push, and whistling birds, which are tiny guided bolts that seek and explode upon making contact with a target. Mandalorians will use any type of weapon that is useful to them, but they do favour the Westar 35 blaster pistol, which is a versatile blaster because of how it can be fired and what configurations it can be used in, whether that be dual wielding, stunning targets, tracking and hunting, and vaporizing. Overall, the Mandalorians are a culture with an extremely intricate and interesting history, and now you hopefully know what to expect if you ever encounter them out in the field. But with that, thanks for watching, long live the Empire, and may the Force be with you.